About 3 weeks ago, I was sitting in a park up in Tannersville when several people walked past me, and I noticed that they were wearing rainbow-colored ribbons. So I asked them what the ribbons were all about, and they told me that July is Gay Pride Month, and that's what the rainbows represented. And then, as I sat there, I tried to remember when it was that people first started wearing ribbons for special causes. And I kind of remembered it first happening around the early 80s during the Iranian hostage crisis. People wore these yellow ribbons. They tied them to trees and lampposts, and they did all of that as signs of solidarity with the hostages and with their families. There were no words written on those ribbons, but everybody knew what they meant. The ribbons told their families that we were sharing some of the pain and frustration and anxiety that they were going through. And since then, I have worn or seen ribbons for many other causes. AIDS awareness, support of our troops, fighting substance abuse, Alzheimer's, raising breast cancer awareness. Despite our differences in all the other areas of our life, wearing a particular ribbon can be a sign of solidarity and support. And I think that the parables are a kind of ribbon for us Christians. They address and remind us of circumstances of need. They unite us in hope. Despite our many differences, they keep us focused. They link us to one another because we are a parable people. Parables inspire us. They give us vision that we wouldn't have on our own. They encourage us in our daily struggles. Like the people who wear colored ribbons, we wear or carry parables in our hearts. We are unified through them. And it's if we say, despite the way the world is, this is the way that I look at life. Or this is what links me to other people. This is what keeps me going. And today, we have the parable of the weeds and the wheat. And oh boy, do we ever need this one. We tune in the world around us through TV or the internet or newspapers, radio. And I don't know about you, but I wind up asking, who's winning here? Good or evil? The decent people of the world or the violators of the innocent? The 20th century was the most brutal century in the history of the world. And I often wonder, don't you think that the 21st century should be improving as we advance as a people? For me, it gets so discouraging sometimes. The evidence mounts against optimism. Sometimes we want to tend to give up on the world and wonder where God is in all of this, which is why we need parables like this one about the weeds and the wheat. In the early church, the recipients of Matthew's gospel, they faced that same mystery of wickedness as we do. Why is there evil in this world? Or in this church? Or in our own hearts? That's a very big question, and this parable does not give an easy answer. In fact, it really doesn't explain it at all, but it never ignores the problem that evil is in our midst. The owner of the field says it quite plainly. I see an enemy's hand in this. This is not a naive or otherworldly parable. It faces facts, like wickedness is a real thing. It is here and now. It can never be ignored. It is not an illusion. And like the weeds in the midst of healthy plants, evil drains human life of its vitality and dedication. That parable spoke to an early church that had its own divisions and arguments and wickedness. And our community also has its issues. And sometimes these issues feel like they're going to split us in two. And you know what? Sometimes they do. Our faith community has been rocked by clergy scandal or divided along ethnic and racial lines, between original members and newcomers, between traditionalists and those who want to update. And while we're at it, we look into our own hearts and we examine our own individual conduct. Weeds are a part of our own personal spiritual landscape. Such vistas of evil, so obvious to us, make us want to get about the business of ripping out the weeds. They are the work of the enemy, we say, and we want to purge evil from our country, from our church, from our own hearts. Yet this parable cautions us. It advises us about the dangers of rushing into judgment. We could destroy what is good in our attempts to rid the world of what is bad. Jesus himself knew that from his very own experiences, that you can't always tell from initial signs how things are going to turn out. You remember in the beginning, Judas showed real promise, didn't he? He had early initiative. He had great administrative skills. He was in charge of the purse. He seemed like an excellent disciple material, a real keeper. And also, if you were Jesus, wouldn't you think about maybe eliminating Peter and Thomas and Martha? They don't show signs of discernment and understanding of what following Jesus would entail. They were very slow to catch on to Jesus' message. But Jesus was patient. He let the good work itself out in their lives. He gave them a chance to grow and bear fruit. Have you ever had a friend whom you disliked the first time you met them, and yet over time they turned out to be the best of friends? This parable really says, you never know. This parable is a story of grace for us. As we look into our own lives and recall the mistakes that we've made and the wrongs that we've done, aren't we glad that we've had some time to change and work things out? Aren't we thankful that we have had the space to let the wheat grow and bear a rich harvest that it has? Suppose we had been judged on the spot. Suppose God moved in really quick to judge and rip us up. If we look at our present lives, we can still see what looks like weeds. But rather than being overcome by discouragement, we hear this parable of hope. Time is being given to us to let the good seed that's planted in us grow and bear fruit. And we can trust that the owner knows what to do. We have trust in his outcome. This is the parable of confidence. God is in charge, and He is there to help us work things out. We don't give up the struggle to do what is right, even when we feel dismayed at how much still needs to be done. Parables, like pieces of ribbon, they don't look powerful. Piece of cloth, a story, but they have the power both to touch us deeply. One symbolizes unity through an exterior sign, and the other gathers our faith and asks us to put our trust in it. We wear the parable on our hearts the same way that people wear ribbons as a reminder. When the world confounds us and evidence seems to mount against our hopes, we look inside of ourselves and see today's parable. We play it back over and over so we can hear it again. It reassures us. We repeat it here in our church to stir us to action, to return to the struggle, to ignore the odds, to stop counting wins, and most importantly, to stop counting losses. In our struggle against evil, we keep at it until the one in charge sends word that it is now time for the harvest. Till the other, who knows better than we how to do the sorting, gets around to it. The owner is in charge. The owner planted good seed, and it's growing to fruition. And we'll be a sorting out, but that's going to be much later. The other will handle that supervision. This parable says to us, there's still time, so hang in there. Thank God.